session today is about the visa policy shifts. As you're all international students and graduates, I'm sure you have been glued to the news and keeping up to date with the changes. Obviously, myself and my team have as well. And even we find it a little difficult to navigate and to simplify. So I'm hoping that by the end of this session, you'll come away with the information that you need. So there's been a lot of changes, but I'm going to focus on just what is required for you guys today. Okay. I'm also going to talk about hiring freezes. That seems to be a bit of a buzzword this year, and I'll kind of explain a little bit about what this means and also what's happening behind the scenes at UK companies, so you kind of understand why these freezes are taking place and kind of what's triggered it as well. Okay, so those are the main things I'll focus on. There is a lot of content. I will try to get through the majority of it, so I can leave at least 20 minutes at the end for a Q&A. So I know a couple of you have already submitted questions. I've noted them and I will answer those first, but please, throughout the session, if you have any kind of burning questions, type them into the chat and I'll refer back to those. So briefly, our team, in case you haven't come across Grad Careers Coach before, I'm the founder, Anika. I have a lovely team. So we have a job success advisor, Muge, our lovely lead coach and program coordinator, Leander Beale. We also have a marketing assistant and actually a much bigger team of coaches as well. So there's lots of people who work really hard behind the scenes to support the work that we do to help international students and graduates with their UK careers. Okay. And we've been doing this for over 9 years now. And I'm proud to say that I'm pretty confident in our process. We have seen lots of visa rules in nearly a decade of doing this. So it doesn't kind of worry me too much, the most recent ones. And I'll explain how changes often go in cycles and how to overcome them. Okay, so next slide, please. So this session, I think it's a good time. The latest changes were in July on the 22nd. So I think this is a good time to kind of digest the changes, what it means for you, how it might change your approach going forward. And again, I'll focus on the ones that I think are the most relevant to you. There's no point being overwhelmed with all of the information in the white paper. So it's just about, what changes are going to be affecting me as an international student and graduate seeking a job. It's about adapting your strategy. So again, based on this information, we know international grads are still getting offers. We've seen offers in our cohort in the last few weeks. So why is this happening? What makes them stand out, etc. And what can you do to stay competitive? And the Q&A. I always think the Q&A is the most interesting part of a session. It kind of lets you have your personalized questions answered. It's intriguing for me. I get to get a feel of your background and kind of the things that you're particularly struggling with. So do stay till the end for our Q&A. Thank you. The key changes. I had to include these key changes, even though some are going to be more relevant than others, just to kind of give you a bit of context around what's been happening. So the government has issued a white paper, which is simply a proposal of changes, recommendations. They will spend some time discussing proposals with key stakeholders. So, for example, universities are going to be consulted. Employers, government bodies, international student bodies as well are going to be consulted. So it can feel like this is, all out of your control, and it's a little daunting, but there will be a time lag between some of these changes and them actually going into effect. So, for example, the graduate visa cuts. If you are already on a graduate visa, there'll be no direct impact on you. So don't stress about that. Actually, it would be really helpful in the chat to understand a little bit more about you guys. So are you currently studying? Have you recently graduated? Are you near the end of your graduate visa? So if you can provide some information, that would be really helpful. So just don't panic yet. Not all of these changes have taken place. The main ones that do concern you are the skilled worker restrictions. So they have increased the requirements, so that the kind of the skill level for a skilled worker visa. So before it was, let's call it medium skills required. It was RQ level 3, I believe. Now the skill has risen, so it's graduate level. So it doesn't, again, impact you negatively because you are all going to be holders of a graduate level degree, so you'll be eligible. But just to kind of let you see that there is a move now for hiring higher skilled workers than previously. Okay. There is a university fee levy which affects unis, so it will cost them a little bit more to enroll their international students and graduates. Okay, so it may affect people coming in and making those university applications. But if you already are here studying or recently graduated, this won't affect you. Okay. The visa cut is one that I know some of you have been a little worried about. It is a cut of 6 months. So you'll be going from a 2-year route to an 18-month route. That's still a lot of time post graduation to hunt for a job. Okay. It gives you a lot of time to gain experience. So you may not want to secure a permanent long-term sponsored job in the UK. You may want to gain some experience, and 18 months still gives you plenty of time in order to do that. English requirements are up. Yeah, again, it's kind of related to the increasing in skills requirements. As university students and grads, you will have already met those requirements already. Okay, so again, no need to be too concerned about those. It's the last two that probably are more directly related to you guys. So number one, it's the longer settlement waits. Not confirmed, but permanent residency used to be granted for all international workers who were here for 10 years. Sorry, 5 years. 5 years. It was the 5-year permanent residency route, or the ILR, as some of you might know it. Now, instead of being on a skilled worker, for example, for 5 years and getting your permanent residency, there is a proposal to double it to 10. This is quite an extreme change, it's a doubling. But again, that is a much longer term concern. The route I'm sure all of you are interested in is the skilled worker route, where you'd want to be on that, to be honest, indefinitely. And if you are on this route successfully for 10 years, you will have permanent residency. Okay, but this is just one of the more kind of market changes. The last one is there's a high skilled boost. So it's easier to secure visas for top talent and specialists. Yeah, so than it was before. So that's good. It gives some opportunity there. And the reason behind it is the UK government understands there are some sectors and some roles that is hard to fill. They need international talent, and they do need to make it much easier to clear that pathway for people to come in and secure those top talent and specialist roles. There is a whole list of what these categories are, and you can find that on the government immigration website. It's also worth looking at this immigration white paper if you want more information, and it gives a clear breakdown of these changes. Okay. Or you can copy and paste the whole thing, put it into ChatGPT and let it summarize it for you. Oh, Karima, can I have the next slide, please? So the highest salary thresholds, I've dedicated a slide for this because this is where I believe a lot of panic is setting in, which is totally fair. So the standard skilled worker visa requirement has now climbed. So it used to be £38,700 for an annual salary, and it's gone up to £41,700. And this is a confirmed change, and it's been in place since just last month, the 22nd of July. And it is high, you can see there is a real jump there, but please don't forget about your new entrant discount. So you are classified as a new entrant if you are a recent UK graduate, which all of you either are or will soon be, or you're under 26. Okay. This new entrant route means you have a discounted salary threshold. So instead of having to meet the £41,700 annually, you can apply for a job in the UK that meets the 33,400 salary level. Okay, and that's for 4 years. You will be able to use this new entrant discount, this new entrant rule. Okay, so you can see the 33,400 versus the 41,700. The 41,700 is known as just a standard route for sponsorship in the UK. It is for experienced workers, not grads like yourselves. You can see there's no discount and time period. Okay, so just bear in mind when you're applying for roles, bear in mind this is the minimum salary threshold. So it has gone up, but you do still have the discount, and this is the salary range that you'll be eligible for. Okay. I hope that's clear, but if there are any questions around this or still some confusion, please do ask in the chat as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what does this mean for you? What do all these changes and what do higher salary thresholds actually mean for you? It is harder. Absolutely. There's no denying that it's harder. But is it impossible? No, not at all. Not from kind of what we're seeing in our current cohort of international grads. But it's important to have the right approach. You do have to be more strategic and more targeted than you had to be pre the visa rule changes. You have to show a stronger ROI, a stronger return on investment as a hire. You kind of have to sell yourself and sell your value. I'll show you again about how to work around hiring freezes, but you do have to adjust your approach, considering some companies are completely freezing their hires, so that you have to be flexible and you have to be adjusting your strategy. And it's always been essential to avoid common application mistakes, but I feel like in this 2020 2025 job market, it's essential. This is the absolute minimum that you must do. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about these common application mistakes later on in this presentation. Next slide, please. So coping with visa anxiety, and this for me is a really important part of the job hunting process. And I don't think it's talked about enough. And often I think international students and grads like yourselves don't realize that it is having a big impact on your job hunt. When visa anxiety levels get to the point where you're not able to focus, you're not able to cope with rejections, for example, you're not able to kind of digest all of the new changes that are happening, visa rule changes, for example, when all of that kind of becomes too much, it does negatively impact your job hunt. It naturally. And, I've been doing this for nearly a decade. Your mindset and the way that you approach your job applications and your interviews make such a huge difference to your outcome. Yes, there's all the practical tips that we can give you and that you already know, but so much of this has to start with your mindset. And just understanding that being an international student and graduate, coming to another country, first of all, is a huge achievement. It's a massive undertaking. Studying in a different country, adapting to the culture. Some of you may have started working here, like part-time jobs or internships or placement opportunities. You're already seeing there is a big change between here and your home country. There's so many adjustments and it's overwhelming. Plus, all of you have a deadline, a visa deadline. Okay, you all know what yours is, and I'm sure you think about that date a lot. And some of you, it may feel like it's in the distance. It might be 2, 3, 4 years away. Some of you, it's going to be much shorter. But just having a set date can cause anxiety, especially when you're job hunting, because it affects your decision making. So, for example, we're working with a grad at the moment. He's got about a year left on his graduate visa. And instead of, sticking with the targeted approach, he sometimes goes off track and thinks, right, I just need to apply anywhere. I've got 12 months. I've only got 12 months. I want to get my job role well before that deadline, and I'm going to panic apply. So kind of coping with this anxiety first, understanding it's there, accepting it's there, not saying that it shouldn't be there, but just being aware of it can help you, because we can see it can impact your job hunt and decision making. So again, we have to kind of, this graduate, he tends to kind of go off track, lose focus, and it's okay because we just bring him back. Okay, so just remember, having a targeted and strategic approach and really sticking to that, not drifting and getting distracted, will make such a big difference. There's lots of ways to cope. So acknowledging it, first of all, you may not be able to explain to friends and family back home what this feels like. But you can talk to your peers. You can talk to your people at university, your tutors, your course leaders. Just have a support network who you can actually share your feelings of anxiety with. Don't bottle it up, because it will go up and down, I'm sure, but it's good to have that support network. Also, focus on what you can control. The government have made several proposed changes, and some have already come into effect. These visa rules, you can't control. Okay, the job market changes and conditions, you can't control. There are so many things that you can, and this is, what I will focus on. I think it's in the next slide. And this is what I really want you to spend, honestly, 90% of your time and energy focusing on. And if you find yourself getting overwhelmed with what you're reading in news or even WhatsApp groups where people are kind of just sharing lots of their own, experiences, and if there are a lot negative experiences, maybe, that it could also be affecting you. So really think you want to preserve, that kind of 90% of your attention. Where is that time and energy being spent? And really focus it on what you can control. Okay. And then anxiety reduction techniques, which we share with all of our grads as well, which is different things depending on what works for you. Breathing exercises, things like meditation can make such a huge difference. Movement, visualization, journaling, things that will help you overcome these stressors, because this is a bit of a long journey. I've been doing this for a long time, and very rarely do we get somebody who starts applying for roles and lands their job offer within weeks. It's rare. It's normally a few months. Sometimes it can take longer. So just remember, right, how am I going to preserve my mental state and my energy in order to have a successful job hunt where I've got my job offer at the end of it. Okay. Next slide, please. Right. So this is a real kind of meat of the presentation. Okay, because this is all about what you can control. So these are 5 strategies to stay competitive in 2025. So I've already talked about the first one, but what do I mean? So it's laser focus your job hunt. This is probably the hardest thing to sustain for a long period of time, but it's so important that you do. And the way to laser focus is ask yourself, okay, not just what am I interested in, what are my target roles, my dream companies, my dream industries. Also have a list of things that you are just not interested in at all. Okay, so know what you are going for and what you're not going for. Okay. Notice when you're moving away from your strategy. So for example, you might be interested in fintech, okay, or financial services more broadly. If you find yourself searching online and seeing a role in healthcare because it has visa sponsorship, and you think, oh, actually, I think I'll just apply to that. If it doesn't meet your skills, your experience, your interest, you have to ask yourself, is this a good use of my time? Is this my focus? Is this my strategy? Always come back to what it is that you're trying to achieve. Okay. And what that means is remembering what you don't want, and also trying to remove any kind of distractions that can pull you in different directions. Yeah. You have a goal for your job hunt, which may be different from maybe what your family might want, what your friends are saying. There might be a group where one of your friends have secured an offer at a startup, and you think, oh, okay, great, I think I'm just going to do that. Focus on your own journey and your own job hunt. It's so important. Employers can feel it when you're applying, that you have genuinely selected them as well as them selecting you. Okay, that you have taken the time, you've shortlisted this role, you have a genuine reason to apply, and it's just a really good fit. They can tell that, and they can definitely see that in your interview performance. So laser focused on the jobs that you are targeting, and try not to drift away from that, even though it can be very tempting. The second strategy to stay competitive, leading with business value, not visa status. I'm sure most of you don't do this, or wouldn't do this, but it's worth reminding. Try to avoid saying things in an interview or an application, and I need a visa sponsorship at this date. My visa is going to run out on this date. I need focus on the business case. You are solving a problem for that company. The company has taken the time to post a graduate job role because they need to grow a team. They need to hit their targets. They need to grow as a company. They need to reduce costs. They have business goals that you are essential. You're an essential part of helping them to achieve those business goals. Now, if you can lead with business value in your application, in your interview, it will just make hiring sense for them to want to have you on board. Okay. So if you need to work on some of this kind of commercial awareness, make this something that you do when you kind of leave this session today. If there's any kind of gap that you're not quite sure of, you're thinking, well, what do you mean business value? How can I demonstrate it? What are the 5 ways I can demonstrate business value? Spend time going deeper into this topic, because it shows in a conversation when a candidate understands not just the job role, but how that role fits into the wider organization and what it is that they want to achieve. Okay. Number 3 is leverage the hidden job market. So I've been talking about this a lot over summer, because summer is when jobs are hidden. Employers are just not advertising. They're not posting on Indeed. They're not posting as much on Bright Network or LinkedIn. They are wanting quick hires often. So the hidden job market is your superpower. 80% of roles aren't advertised. So 80% of roles, this is a statistic that's all roles, so not just grad roles. But I still think it was so high that I wanted to include it here. Now, this is where your network is going to be key to uncovering some of these hidden job opportunities. Please start building your network right now. Don't wait until you graduate. You can build it now. You can have your virtual network. You've got LinkedIn is such a great tool. It's amazing. Used well, it is by far the top way of building your network and uncovering roles that you had never imagined existed or would be advertised. Okay. So why are companies not advertising roles? Sometimes it's speed. Sometimes they know if they advertise the role, they're just going to get thousands and thousands of applications they're going to have to work through. They'd rather do it in a more targeted way. Startup sometimes, again, they want to hire through their network. Okay, they're lean. They don't want to go through set recruitment processes. They want to do things more via their network. So this is your opportunity. So if you are networking, how's it going? And do you have any questions about how to network? Any kind of worries about not doing the right thing, or tips you would like? Please do share that in the chat. Number 4 is master storytelling in interviews. Okay, so your application, your interview is simply a series of you telling stories to the employer so they can get a feel for who you are, your skills, your values, your drivers, your value, and how you're going to, make a big impact to their organization and their team. There is a way to master storytelling, and it goes beyond the kind of the foundation, which is STAR technique, for example. If you're answering competency questions, situation, task, answer, results, that's the kind of foundation that you would have been taught at university. You can find that online. It's a great structure, don't get me wrong. It just provides that, though, structure. What I'm talking about is dynamic, memorable storytelling. You know, how are you coming across? What is the impression and the feeling they're getting when they're meeting you and they're listening to you talk about yourself and your experiences? Getting that right is honestly the key between them thinking, okay, next candidate, and oh, we have to get this person in. Yeah. So mastering storytelling, and it's a skill set, can be learnt, but it's really important. The last one is kind of related to the second, but position yourself as a low risk, high value hire. Okay. So you want to just position yourself as a candidate who is a safe bet. Now, again, it's talking in the company's language, think about why they advertise this job role. What do they need you to come in and do? Okay. Think about the language they use. Think about the problems they have. As a graduate going into a company, you kind of are a safe bet. You are coming in at the ground level. You're going to be on the lowest salary. So investment wise, you're not going to be costing as much as senior hires and C-suite. So you are a safe bet, but you're also an essential hire. But positioning yourself as such in your applications and in your interviews is key. And again, it's about the language that you're using. Even dropping in certain sentences can position yourself as that safe bet. Yeah. It's remembering that, yes, we have advances in AI. Yes, a lot is automated, but these hiring decisions at the end of the day are made by human beings. Sometimes recruiters within an organization, sometimes a manager of a team will make that hiring decision, but you have to connect with those people, okay? And understanding that power of storytelling, positioning yourself, networking, understanding the power of all these strategies will ensure that you're not only staying competitive, but that you'll be very successful in your job hunt in 2025. Okay, because these things that I've included in this slide, we're not seeing evidence of graduates doing these things. Job roles are still being unfilled every single year. And I know that because our coaches on our team, they are graduate recruiters. And one of the biggest issues that they have is they have the job role, they have a certain, number of places to fill, but they can't find the right candidates. And so you covering all of these 5 bases will mean that you are positioning yourself as the best candidate, as a kind of a no-brainer as a hire. Okay. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. So how can we help you? If you're ready to fast track your job hunt, your visa-sponsored job offer, you can book a free 20-minute job consultation call with my lovely job success advisor, Muge. We work closely together, and in the 20 minutes, she will ask you just questions because you're all individual. You all have very different goals, very different backgrounds, and we kind of want to give you a personalized approach and advice. Okay, so come and have a chat, and after 20 minutes, if you want to have a chat with myself, I'm very, very happy to speak to you. We're proud that we have an 89% success rate. Part of that is we do have to be selective with the grads that we take on our coaching programs. So selective, not just in terms of industry, it's also your drive. Why do you want to stay in the UK? That's really important. Are you open to kind of the process and diving in and trying, trusting our approach? That's key. And like I said, we have over 9 years helping international grads, and I'd say it is a tough market this year. 2025, it is tough. There's no denying it. But I've done sessions like this where it's been COVID and it's been tough, really tough. That was the mega hiring freeze. I was starting this company when there was no graduate route visa at all. So in 2016, if you're an international graduate, you just had 4 months after graduation to land your job offer. After that, you had to leave. So it's kind of harder actually before in many, many ways. There's a lot of growth sectors. So I didn't mention, I just want to, before we go into the Q&A, I just kind of want to touch on this as well. There are a lot more growth sectors in 2025, especially in tech and data and fintech. And we haven't really seen that as much in the last few years. The kind of three areas. So tech, data, financial services as well, consulting. So these are huge, huge growth areas. So we're talking the opportunities are, they have tripled in these sectors. So when you're thinking about your job strategy, have a look at the industries that are more likely to sponsor you, that are global. So they have diverse teams anyway. And they're more likely to offer you sponsorship and understand the value that you'll bring and also the advantages that you can bring because you're an international. That's not always something you should see as a hurdle. It should be something that you lead with often. If you're applying for an international financial services companies, you can demonstrate knowledge of global financial markets rather than just a UK one. Okay, so just remember the industries you target are really important when you're job hunting. And try to avoid chasing sectors that were already difficult. Okay. And yeah, if you have any kind of industry specific questions, please shoot them through, or we can talk about that in a one-to-one. But you want to make sure that you set yourself up for success. And one way to do that is targeting the right industries. Okay, so thank you for sharing some questions in the chat. That's really helpful. We did get a couple of pre-submitted questions that I will answer now before going through the messages. So there was a question from Duke about, I think it was leveraging your experience. You're about to go on a placement and you want to know how to make yourself more competitive when you're job hunting. If you are in the session and have more parts to that question, please do add them in the chat. So you're about to embark on a placement year. Amazing. This is such a great time, and congratulations for securing the placements. Okay, so there's lots that you can do to maximize your time. The first thing is you must document everything that you're doing in your placement week by week. It sounds so over the top, but you'll be thankful for it at the end of the placement. So document the tasks you've been given, the way you've been communicated with your manager. Is it virtual? Is it one-to-ones? Document your responsibilities early on and how that changes over the placement period. Any key achievements would be great. Also, key learnings. You'll be surprised. 1 week in a workplace, by the end of that week, ask yourself, right, what are the things that I've learned? What are the things that I would do differently next week? Okay, can have this continuous improvement mindset and document them. You will want to add this to your CV, but it'll also be helpful when you're talking about your placement in an interview, for example. And it may be that at the end of the placement, you'll have lots and lots of notes. You can feed that again into ChatGPT or Claude, and you can ask them to summarize it for you, or use that information for an interview answer or whatever it is. But all of that is gold. So you don't want to risk forgetting everything that you've learnt because you haven't periodically documented the things that you've been doing. Leveraging your placement as well by asking for a reference early on. So even kind of month 2, month 3, if you're really getting on with your manager or someone within the organization that you're working with, it could be a peer. Ask them, say, by the way, could you provide me a reference? I'm going to be a job seeker in a few months' time or next year. So do ask early on. People don't mind, but it's good to plant that seed in their minds. LinkedIn recommendations, I think, are fantastic. It's quite rare for me to see a candidate with a LinkedIn recommendation as a grad. I find it really impressive. I like it. Employers, recruiters like it as well. That's a really quick, easy way to stand out, build credibility, and build trust. The other thing to do in your placement is be observant of the work culture. So are there any particular ways that makes this work culture very specific? Is it informal, relaxed? What's the communication style like? How are the teams communicating? Is it Slack? Really think about this because all work cultures will be unique, but you can even just the fact that you can talk about that in an interview shows that you're observant and that you understand what work culture is made up of and how important it is to adjust for different work cultures and different workplaces. That is really important. And actually, I didn't talk about it too much, but job readiness is essential for an employer. The thing that's changed this year compared to previous years is that employers want their candidates to be ready from day one. Not in terms of the skills, you'll be trained, that'll be fine, but they want you to be ready in terms of your behaviors and your attitudes. So your understanding of business culture, your understanding of how things work, they do need that, immediately. So if there's any gap that you have, try and fill that. And another way to demonstrate job readiness is understanding your target industry. So trends, risks, threats. How is AI going to affect cybersecurity? Okay, so really see how you can dig deep and talk confidently about these things that will be affecting the company that you're potentially going to be a part of. That's a really nice way to show job readiness. Okay. So thank you, Duke. I hope that answered your question. There was another question, but
Thank you.
I think it was about industries. So I think I have covered that off. So yeah. I'm going to go through the chat now. Karima, if there are any questions that have come in through the chat that you feel, are kind of most important, please do give me a shout. Otherwise, I'll just start from the top.
Yeah, you can just make your way from the top. If you wouldn't mind just reading them aloud as well for the recording, that would be great.
Of course, yes, that's a good shout. Perfect. Right. Okay, so there's what I might try and do is just bundle some of the visa related questions because they might be similar. So question from Fuyong, I'm at the end of my course. Will I be affected if I apply for graduate? I'm guessing you're a graduate visa in September. So no, you won't be affected if you're graduating in September. I'm assuming that means next month, not September 2026. So always have an alert for visa rule changes. Things do happen quite often, but do stay kind of up to date with the new rules. But in terms of the graduate visa, as of now, there's no confirmed changes. This is all up for discussion. It's in kind of proposal stage. Okay, so I doubt that the majority of you will be affected by the new changes. And if you will, again, don't panic, because we're moving from 2 years to 18 months. So it's just a loss of 6 months. And I could probably do an entire session on this. The graduate route doesn't guarantee you a long-term job in the UK. It doesn't guarantee sponsorship. Okay. So thank you, by the way, for sharing all of your statuses. I can see there's a variety. Some of you are on a student visa. Some of you are going to go on the graduate visa soon. Again, Duke, the ILR change, which is 5 years to 10 years, we don't know. It's still under review. Yeah, it's still in consideration. That's right. Okay. Okay. A question from Jessie. Again, this is, I guess it's visa related because it refers to the new entrant. Jessie, what is considered a recent graduate? And if you are doing a master's, which graduation is considered? So it's your most recent graduation. If you're doing a master's right now, it's your master's graduation dates. Okay. It's a good question, but yeah, if you're currently doing your master's, you can apply after you finish. You can apply for your graduate route visa. Okay, so yeah, if there's any specific reason that you're worried about your eligibility, let me know. But yeah, you'll be absolutely fine. Okay, and it will be your most recent graduation that's considered. Yeah. Okay, Mark, a question about the new entrant discount. Kindly reiterate on the new entrant discount on salary. Okay, so it just means that you don't have to meet the higher salary threshold of £41,700 when you're applying for a job in the UK and would require sponsorship. A new entrant. I actually have a resource that summarizes the new entrant discount, and I'm happy to share that all with you as well. Okay, so if you're still unsure whether you're eligible, I have a breakdown for that, because I can see there's quite a few questions about the new entrant discount. Okay. But just last one, Isaac, it's fine if you are over 26 but still a new graduate, because it's an or. So you have to meet just one of the criteria. And if you meet one of the criteria, you'll be considered a new entrant. Okay. Okay, a question from Fyong. With the current situation, how should I answer when being asked if I intend to stick with a job long term? Okay, thank you for that question. I'm not sure if you mean a job that you're currently in, or if it's during an interview you've been asked this question. So always just remember who is kind of sitting on the other side when you're being interviewed or when you're in your role. So any manager, any recruiter hiring you will want you to stay in that job long term. Of course they would, whether it's a small company or whether it's a global bank, they want to hire somebody that is going to stick around for the long term. Now, the reality is, within your age group, it's not happening. You're moving around, you're much more dynamic. Every 2-3 years, you're making changes and you're shifting from jobs, companies, sometimes industries as well. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly fine. You know, companies know that. Companies are aware of that. But if you're being asked if you intend to stick with a job long term, then, you know, the wise thing would be absolutely, I would like to stick to this job long term. This is where I see the role going. This is how I see myself progressing, etc., etc. Okay, so they need to feel that you are a stable long-term hire, and you need to be able to demonstrate that. It doesn't mean that you should stay with a company for, you know, a really long time. It just means you need to give them that assurance that you see this as a long-term job role. Okay. Okay. Right. So there's quite a long question, but I don't know if it's a question. Okay. Okay, I think I'm going to talk about networking. So there's a couple of questions around networking, and I'll then answer another one question, but I guess, Karima, we might run out of time. So does that sound good? I'll kind of bundle networking tips and then another question.
Sounds good. Yep, no problem.
Okay, Oduro and Sagar, you've talked about networking on LinkedIn. So yeah, there are lots of smart and effective ways. It's a similar approach as your job application. So being really targeted and being strategic. The first thing to do is always remember that you have a network already. Don't forget that. You already have a huge network of people that you know, because your own friends, family, course mates, peers will have their own network, and, you know, so on and so forth. So start with almost an audit of who you know. You know, write that down, and it will bring up people that you just have forgotten. And the person that you're thinking of may not be in that industry, but they may know somebody in that industry, for example. Okay. Networking, I want you to see it as a lifelong skill. I'm still networking. You know, this is something that you consistently do, and I've seen it. The best networkers are they are so strategic, and the outcomes are amazing. And networking isn't, by the way, always what do you want. It can also be connecting people. A lot of what I do is connecting people together. You know, for example, people on our cohort, got somebody trying to get into this real estate, funnily enough. So, you know, I'm connecting them with somebody that I know. So just remember that there's a whole list of skills that go into being a successful networker, and think about what you can offer as well as what you can give back. Yeah. So I think that's really important. So that the best approach on LinkedIn first is to look at your profile, okay, because that is your first impression. It's your extension of your CV, and the beauty is you have complete freedom with it. You can be more personal. You have an about section which can talk about, you know, what you're looking for in a role, but also what you've enjoyed, why you've chosen your course. You can talk about your values. You can talk about your things that you enjoy outside of your studies. Make it really personal. So my question when I look at a LinkedIn profile is, okay, after reading this profile, do I feel like I know that person a little bit better? You know, and that's how hiring managers see it as well. Is the impression reflective of you? How can you make your profile make it feel that somebody knows you a little bit more? So you almost like are kind of skipping a stage in the recruitment process, because that person searching your profile feels that, oh God, I feel like I've got a good sense of Oduro, you know, I feel like I know him and what he's really interested in. So your first step is reviewing your profile. Okay. Look at some of the profiles that you like, that you follow on LinkedIn, people that you find really inspiring. What are they doing? What's their profile like? What's their background picture like? Maybe they have a quote. Maybe they have, a professional eye-catching picture. That's the first thing. And then you want to branch out to networking. So before sending a single connection request, write down your 2 to 3 goals that you want to get out of networking. So what is it? Is it to meet people in person, to have like a one-to-one coffee chat? Are you more comfortable doing that, or a one-to-one Zoom or Teams call? Or do you want to find out more information? Is it because you want to find out something that you can't get on a Google search? For example, about a role. What are the highlights and the not so great parts of the role? What about work culture? This company says that there's lots of travel. Like, what does that mean? Is there loads? Where have you been? Etc. etc. So really think about what your goals are before you send any connection requests. And when you send a connection request, you always have the option of a message, a little message. Introduce yourself. Don't use AI. It's for those messages. Just really introduce yourself, and explain, why you're getting in touch, and make it personal. And it may mean then you're only sending, 10 a day or something, or 30, 40 a week. That's fine. I think that's okay. Targeted and quality is better than high volume where you don't get any responses. Also, be mindful that on LinkedIn, if you're connecting with a hiring manager for your target company, they probably get a lot of messages. Is there any other ways that you can get information or an insight into the company, not via the hiring manager? What about a graduate who's just finished at your university and they've just started at the company? You can say, oh, I see you've graduated from, University of Manchester as well. Oh, it's such a great place. How's the role going? Would you mind having a 15-minute chat with me? Think about how you can increase the response rates. A good way to know you're going to get a response is if somebody's quite active on LinkedIn. So somebody who's got, quite a few connections, they post regularly, they're more likely to see the message and reply to you. Okay, so just a few ways. Some people will have their contact details. So if there is an email address, pop them an email as well as sending a message on LinkedIn. But bear your goals in mind and don't make the goal, can you get me a job? Who's hiring? When are you hiring? That isn't the way to nurture and build a network. Okay, start with a conversation and try and get information, and to connect with that person, and think about a way to just be authentic and be memorable. I like in person. I think that's always really nice. If you can get a coffee chat with somebody, you can say, look, I see that you're working at the St. Paul's office of this company. Do you fancy having a coffee around the corner at this place, for example? Okay. And again, having a profile that's actually feels friendly and warm and personal makes it more likely for somebody to say yes to you than if you have got very little information on there. Okay. So what you put into LinkedIn makes a difference to what you'll get out of it. This is just LinkedIn. But I mentioned recommendations as well. Getting recommendations on LinkedIn probably put you in the top 10% because it's just very rare to get people with recommendations, but it builds up credibility. So if that's something that you can do, it doesn't have to be through work. It can be a course tutor, it can be a colleague, a course mate, it can be somebody who can vouch for your skills, your experience, your behaviors, that kind of thing. Okay, your qualities. So I hope that helps. I mean, honestly, do use it. It's such a fantastic tool. And if you use it regularly and in that kind of very engaged way, you will get the results that you're looking for. Okay. I'm going to answer a last question, something different to what we've had before, which is great. So it's a question from Oriyomi. How can I relate my work experience in my country back home in line with my job application here? That is such a great question. First, your work experience in your home country is so valuable and interesting for a UK employer. They want to know all of the details, your responsibilities, your skills, your achievements, everything. The way you can relate it is, well, if it's directly related in terms of industry, then that's much more straightforward. But if it's not related, if you have a experience in a completely different sector back home or in your family business, for example, there are still lots of ways you can relate it. The first way is skills based, really talking about the skills, the top 3 to 5 skills that you gained from this experience, and transferable ones that will relate to your job role. So communication skills, team working, leadership, managing your own time, managing your own workload. Okay, so all of these skills are directly related to a job in the UK. Okay, all of these skills you can talk about in an application and in your interview as well. There's also kind of strengths that you can bring into it. So things that drive you, motivate you. So for example, in an interview, you could talk about your homework experience and say, I was driven to apply for this experience because of X, Y, Z. Even when I was unmotivated, these are the things I used to do to help me stay on track, for example. So all of these are transferable, and don't discount your homework experience, and also don't try to adapt it too much. So I've seen that where you aren't mentioning specific details related to your experience because you worry that it won't translate to the UK. Try not to do that. The more detail, the better. Include the detail. So sometimes, a UK employer doesn't understand the context of your experience. So you can mention a company name. They don't know if it was a small startup, a family business, a huge global company. They might not always know that. So add that detail and add that context as well. But any experience, any work experience is valuable and something that you can relate to. Okay. And if there's any skills gaps between what you have and your target jobs, think about how you can fill those skills gaps while you're studying. Because you have time to fill those. It doesn't have to be through work experience either, the way that you fill those gaps. Okay. I just want to mention one more thing before Karima, did you have anything you wanted to add before I wrap up?
No, I think you've covered everything, to be honest. Yeah, I think everything has been covered. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, no, okay, brilliant. That's really good to hear. No, so I kind of just wanted to finish on one last point about staying competitive and having that competitive edge and competitive advantage. So all of you have time, and some of you haven't even graduated yet. So when you're thinking about your goal and your target job role, and if you feel that there's any gap missing, it could be a communication gap. You don't feel that confident presenting yourself in an interview. It could be that you have a technical skills gap. Things are moving quickly, for example, with AI and machine learning and agents. How can you fill that gap? That is a brilliant and easy way to stay competitive. Okay, so it could be learning a course. There's so many amazing free courses. OpenAI Academy, for example, has little tutorials. It doesn't have to be something that takes a lot of time, but anything that you can do between now and securing your job to fill any key gaps will put you in the top kind of 10% of candidates who are not doing those things and not thinking in that way. Okay, so maximize the time that you have. And yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for the chat, the messages. I know it's frustrating, and it's always been difficult, to be honest, to be an international student and graduate. It's certainly not easy 2025, but I just want to reassure you that our opportunities, be strategic, hang in there, stay motivated. If your current approach isn't working, try something different. It's not your talents that's the cause of the rejection. It could be lots of things going on behind the scenes. It could be tiny little adjustments to your application and your approach. But good luck, and please do get in touch. We would love to hear from you. Last thing, I also have talking about staying focused. I have a guide, I have a blueprint for international grads, and it's kind of basically a pathway to your visa sponsored job offer. It's kind of a roadmap. I mentioned it in the webinar description, but it's a roadmap to get you from where you are to your offer. And if you'd like this roadmap, please do send me your CV for that roadmap. My email address is anika@gradcareerscoach.com, but I'm sure Karima can send it to you along with the slides and the presentation after this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anika. I really appreciate your time today. And yeah, just as Anika said, feel free to scan the QR code on the screen, and also I will input any links, emails, any contact information for you, all of you guys, and I'll email it over by the end of this week. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I hope to hear from some of you soon. And yeah, thank you for inviting me to this session today, Karima. I appreciate it.